So, right now we are in Unit 3, and we've been talking about the free market, and we've been trying to understand why poor countries are poor and rich countries are rich. And today we're going to take a look at an important topic called the characteristics of capitalism. So, this is today's lesson. You should have a handout with fill in the blank notes that you should be able to follow along with this video and fill in your notes. So, in this lesson, we're going to talk about what makes a country free. So, this word capitalism that I keep talking about and that you see, this word capitalism is really interchangeable with the idea of a free market. So, it's just a different way of saying it, okay? Capitalism or free market, but we're talking about the same kind of thing. So, why is it that we're giving more attention to capitalism than to like a command economy, where the government controls everything? And the answer is simply because of the world we live in. After World War II, there was kind of this big rise in command economies. Russia had communism, was a command economy. China had a command economy, and many other countries around the world did the same thing. But they're going out of fashion because what essentially happened was people started to realize that those types of economies do not work. And, even if you just look at the difference between the United States and the Soviet Union, the United States got richer and richer through the 80s and the 90s, and the Soviet Union got poorer and poorer. And so, really, those have gone out of fashion, and most economies in the world are more capitalist. So, we want to be able to read about a country. This is your goal. You should be able to read about a country and to be able to recognize from reading about it if it has the characteristics of capitalism. So, that's actually going to be the test. This unit's test will be, can you make a clear argumentative statement about whether or not this country is capitalist or not, okay? And how are we going to do this? Well, these are characteristics of capitalism, and we're going to talk through all of them. So, the first characteristics of capitalism is rule of law, okay? If your country has rule of law, then you have probably a free market, or you're closer to a free market, okay? Now, what is rule of law? It does not mean that the countries have laws. All countries have laws. North Korea has laws. China has laws. It's not about that. It's about whether or not they are equally enforced. If both the governed, that would be the subjects, the people, and the governors, so it would be like the people in charge, the president, the king, are under the law. Everyone is under the law. That the law is above all of us. We all have to follow the law. Okay, that's the idea of rule of law. And a capitalist country has to have that. Now, if you don't have rule of law in a country, what does that mean? It means that your justice system is terrible. So if somebody like commits a crime against you, murders someone, nobody does anything about it. When there's no rule of law, countries institutionally discriminate against groups of people, whole groups of people, just completely treated terribly, forced into labor or whatever. Like, for instance, right now in China, there's an entire group, a Muslim minority group, that is being pushed into concentration camps. So you have a problem there. If you don't have fair judges, and then of course, like in Cameroon, where there's a lot of bribes, where you can just bribe cops to get out of punishments. Another thing is property rights. People, to be a capitalist country, you need to have property rights. You've got to be able to protect your stuff. So intellectual property, copyrights, I need to be able to keep or protect my ideas. I need to protect my land, my house. If somebody breaks into my house, there should be punishments for that person because I know what's mine, you know what's yours, and we understand and respect each other. The law protects our property. Now, why is this a big deal? Property rights is a huge deal. You need to star this, underline this. This is huge. If you do not have property rights, Can you start a business? Like, can you do anything? Well, no, because if you don't have property rights, then that means you could pour millions of dollars to create a business and nothing would happen. Like your business could just go away. Someone could take your business. Someone could just like say, "Hey, that business looks nice. I think it's going to be mine now." What? No. Okay, so without property rights, you can't invest anything. You can't take any risks. Why in the world would you take something that you own and risk it if there's no way to be sure that the government's going to protect your property? Well, there's no reason to do that. So, like, think about it, guys. Think about your own personal stuff. Think about even the difference between like your own personal computer that you bought with your own money versus like a school Chromebook. Which one do you care more about? Well, you care more about yourself because it's yours. Think about even stuff that's yours versus stuff that's like a sibling's, that's your brother's. Which one do you care about more? Well, I care about my stuff, right? It's that, again, self-interest idea. So private property, if people own things, then we have an incentive to work, we have an incentive to invest and to save. And private property, this is a really another really key point. Collateral. Okay? Collateral. What is collateral? It's something that you put up to borrow money. Okay? So let's say, for instance, I want to go borrow money to start a business. Well, I don't have money. That's why I need to borrow it. And so I go to the bank and say, "Hey, I'd like to borrow some money." And they say, "What can you give for collateral?" And I can say, "Well, I can give my house for collateral." And what does that mean? It means that if I don't pay back the money, then they can take my house. I've basically used my house as collateral, as security for the loan. Now, why is this a big deal? Because if you don't have private property, if nobody owns anything, then you can't borrow money. Why do you need to borrow money? Because that's how businesses grow. That's how businesses grow, is to be able to borrow money, to be able to do something new, and then grow the business. So, guys, property rights are hugely important. Without them, your economy is in shambles. Think about it. If there's no property rights, nobody's investing, nobody's borrowing, because nobody can be sure they will keep your investments. Your land, your business, your money, it can be taken by the government at any time or taken by another citizen at any time. There's no land title. Land title is always up for question. It's like, where does my land end? Where does yours start? Nobody knows. And the government is always changing its mind on where the lines are. I mean, when there's a country that doesn't have property rights, that's a really key thing that should show you that they are not a free market. They don't have the characteristics of capitalism.